Hi, everybody. Thanks for attending. We're on like the downhill slide now for it. So this is always the critical part. It's like we're either going to put you to sleep or we're going to revive you back up for that last of it. So hopefully it's the former. It's not the former. It's the latter. Uh, this panel is called "A Moment with MediaKind," and when I first read this in my jet lag brain on a Monday night, I literally thought it said ways AI will make entertainment better by removing humans, and I was like, is that the message we're trying to make? Surely it's not. Nope, it turns out we are actually not removing the humans, and that's very specifically what we want to talk about. So, I think many of you have seen me before. I'm the CTO for Media and Entertainment at Microsoft. I'm joined by a great panel here. Aaron, why don't you introduce yourself and we'll go down the line.
Thanks, Andy. Aaron Behman. I'm Media and Entertainment Global Lead at AMD. Joined AMD actually about a year and a half ago from Xilinx. That's a company that was acquired by AMD. So my background is in embedded broadcast and embedded vision systems. Most recently, my previous role was responsible for defining some products supporting live video streaming and transcoding. So looking forward to today's chat.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Eric Ramberg from MediaKind, could you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So, Erik Ramberg, nice to meet you all. I run our global business development team at MediaKind. We are a media technology company. We've been around for a couple decades, serving the broadcaster, operator, MVPD, and sports leagues, communities. We've only recently, over the past 4.5 years, been called MediaKind. And, anyways, lots to talk about here today.
And Mr. Arul?
Hello, everyone. Leonard Arul. I'm with Microsoft Program Manager. My areas of expertise is M&E based. I work with product and engineering team to build platforms that works with M&E kind of requirements. So that's the core. And I've been with M&E for a long time, and now working more with AI-based products.
And you came out of the production space, so I mean, you have
Yeah.
a lot of thoughts around where it fits into the production tool chain and the other elements of this. So this is definitely not new, and I think that's really part of what we've been talking about here is that like AI didn't suddenly get invented in January when press releases went out and all the oxygen got sucked out of every other conversation that we were having. This is something we've been working with in this space for a long time. Aaron, I mean, when's the like where does sort of the predated the early eras of AI for you really start for the media space as you think about?
Sure. I mean, we've worked very closely with Microsoft to define certain products that would be deployed within Microsoft services to do a lot of, let's say, more pixel AI than, let's say, application AI. I think we're talking a lot at this conference about application level AI. We've been really focused at ways that we can enhance video quality, but also lower bit rates. And that has a really good sustainability story as well. And so working closely with Microsoft and then other partners like Twitch to define areas that we can improve the way an encoder works, I think will have a very important impact on how we all enjoy and consume content.
And I came out of the encoding space before Microsoft, and I think that was a lot of the early ML and AI thought process that I had was like using it for the compression space. And Eric, I know that's kind of where MediaKind started with a lot of it as well, but it's certainly far from the only place. Where are you guys looking at the early days of the AI space?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, compression was the first real application. Over 10 years ago, when we really started transition from, let's say, the more classic sort of ways of optimizing, sort of the full whole feedback loop piece of it, sort of moving into the more machine learning and then eventually AI capable ways. And when you think about compression, like there's two vectors that you're trying to optimize for. You're trying to make sure that as certainly as creative artists, that it looks incredible. You want it to be beautiful. You want it to preserve the impact, of that original MES file. You want to really make sure that it impacts the audience like it should. But on the other side, you can't do that if you can't do it cost effectively, if you can't get it to the consumer, if you can't deliver it, through whether it's through traditional linear methods or through digital streaming methods. You have to be able to have it be the appropriate size that fit the economics of that distribution. So how do you work that? That's the challenge there. And it, years past, when we weren't that efficient, it was kind of basic how we would tune things and all. But now we had to use much more advanced things that humans can't figure out and could do themselves. We had to then teach machines how to learn how to do those types of things and let them sort of like then optimize for us. So
Yep. Yeah. And Leonard, where were some of the early days for you? I mean, I would imagine you were in sort of production space doing production work at that time. Where were you applying AI in those sort of early days? Where was the beginning point for you in this part of it?
I would say lots of. I mean, we have to first differentiate between automation and AI, right? That's the
Fair.
core. The place where we applied more AI is end of automation. You create something, automate something, and we have all been in a spot where it goes wrong because you put it on a wrong spot, it goes sideways, and it messes a bunch of things. Instead of changing a new line character, it'll change the whole thing on a script or kind of a timelines change across 20,000 videos, and you have a problem now. So that AI is kind of started as a guardrails, which
Right.
can
Some of the
decide on
QA and the QC process
process, yeah.
as part of that, absolutely elements that can be automated. So,
Yeah.
and a great call out the difference between sort of automation and then applying intelligence to that. Absolutely. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's also, but even so, I feel like that was very early days for all those pieces of it. And I'm sort of like Erik, I was probably doing that stuff 10 or 15 years ago and in that time space. But I'd say over the last 10 years, it's been a lot of using things like cognitive services on the Azure side as I joined Microsoft and started taking advantage of those pieces. And it was really about point solutions, little pieces that could go be applied to something simple, translating a bunch of script or a bunch of text, taking and doing a speech to text as a piece of it, or pulling together elements. So it was just sort of automating the little pieces of the workflows. But it was always, there were some limited capabilities. It was definitely sort of simple trained pieces to go do those functions in that sort of space and I'm sort of still in that pre-generative platform area, right? Like what are the elements or what are the pieces you saw in that evolution of it?
Yeah, I mean, for us, feedback that we've received from you and again other partners has been, we're migrating. I mean, look at AVC H.264, right? 80% of the internet today is still being encoded in that standard. That's a 20-year-old standard. And to make a move to preserve video quality levels at that level, but then cut bit rates in half, I mean, it requires an order of magnitude and computational power to do that. So if you can do things, especially in the live streaming space, to further improve quality and lower bit rates, AI plays a big role there. So a great example of that is let's take someone who's an esports live streamer, right? They've got synthetic content, they're playing a game, they're a talking head in the corner of the frame, and of course it's a video game, so there's leaderboards, right? And unfortunately, traditional encoders, even modern encoders like AV1 or HEVC, they still don't quite serve all of those requirements. And so implementing techniques like region of interest detection to spot the talking head, to spot the text, and then to use, frankly, very traditional techniques to clean up text and to clean up video ultimately results in lowering bit rates even more than you would get with these more modern encoders. So that's been a key area where we've been focused.
And all of that's relatively automated. Like not a lot of that is exposed to the end user, right? Like you're just getting the advantage of it. So it was sort of just baked in inherently from
Correct.
the start.
Correct. And I think important to talk today, these are like pixel AI level techniques. I think what's really interesting, Erik, I know we're going to talk a bit more about more application level, especially in real-time settings. I mean, it's fascinating the opportunities we have. Yeah.
absolutely.
I like the way that you're differentiating the sort of the pixel level and the application. Where do you want to take that piece of it, Erik?
Well, maybe I'll just make it a little tangible. How about that?
That'd be great.
So just a couple of slides here. You know, normally on a year-to-year basis, we would typically have seen like a 10% increase of efficiencies for the same quality level. But what's interesting is with all these IA techniques, we've almost doubled that. So we're like 18, even sometimes we've achieved over 20% year to year. So year-to-year increases in efficiencies, and it really has made a huge difference. And of course, moving, as you mentioned, onto a modern codecs like VVC have made a big difference. And just look at this example here. This is a live. This was actually a race in Europe, live race. We just grabbed one frame from it, two parallel coders. I mean, can anyone really see the difference? And look at the bits per second, supported there. This goes back to my comment that you want to have that quality level. It needs to maintain that, maybe even get it a little better, and we'll talk about that in a second. But at the same time, how can you meet the efficiencies that you need to make it economically viable? And this is what can be done with AI.
Well, this is a good example of AI not messing up hands,
Yeah,
right?
there we go. There we go.
Actually making them look a little better.
Exactly. So.
Leonard, on on more of the production side, away from the other, is there outside of sort of just the QC and the QA pieces of it, were there earlier explorations, again, sort of the pre-generative sort of area of it, were there major areas of exploration that you were interested in getting into and bringing into the workflow? Because I think you were doing a lot of catalog management type work,
That's
right?
Yeah.
So on the supply chain side, it seems like there's a lot of obvious places where pieces can come in. Can you sort of talk to me a little bit about some of the places where you see AI fitting into that catalog management or media supply chain?
Definitely, yeah. We did a lot of work towards, as you mentioned, mastering and post mastering, how to catalog them, preserve it for 100 years, what is the best format, how can it automatically change from one format to another format if it goes on LTO, and then metadata extraction. Metadata extraction was, again, we had a big panel this morning about metadata.
I heard it was pretty good.
How much metadata can we extract and how relative it is for that time and for the future, because relativeness and context is the key of any information you get out of it. Because with TV, the information is really, really hard for certain time, like news, right? Like 15 minutes, it's more important. After 15 minutes, it's history. But the video content, it's this the different space where you take 6 months to build it or 8 months to build it, then the release is your key time. So there's a lot of variation in how you gather metadata, and the data profile changes high secure to it's in everybody's house at one point in time. So that's the profile of the data. So the metadata extraction and context was really useful with AI because it can identify during the phase of the process of the data it knows. And in the early stages too, like scripts and people writing things on call sheets and scanning them, there's no digital format. The data is lost, the information is lost. How do we scan them? Like form recognizer, how do you scan them, pull the data out of it, make it useful data connected to the right information to go flow through the process? That's another key ecosystem.
It's great examples of where, like, we have three very different use cases of it applying to the silicate, to the application, and then to a variety of the work pieces that are there. Erik, are there, while we're on the metadata, it immediately made me think of, like, I would imagine that there are also ways that the metadata can help inform the encoding to a certain degree as well. There's information that could be passed there that is probably valuable. What's MediaKind's take on that, and where have you been thinking about that?
So specifically from a compression standpoint, all algorithms are really going to be focused on the use case. So you mentioned it earlier. If it's artificial, if it's a gaming type, streaming type situation versus a movie versus which will be a different frame rate and have a different sort of gamut from a light point of view, and or versus television, classic television. They're all going to be a little different in sports and all. And what you can do is exactly that, is be able to then detect what's the use case here, what's going on with it, and then it can approach it and optimize it in a much more efficient way than doing
Got
it
it.
that way.
So even the encoder then is able to take advantage of pools of that metadata to help evaluate how it should adjust and attack and approach it.
Yep.
Which is stuff like, I mean, like, not to feel old, but like that was stuff human operators had to go figure out. It wasn't a thing that we were automating even just a couple of years ago.
And I think it becomes critical too as we see bigger, better, and faster pixels in front of us. I mean, we've got, the EU not very happy around 8K streaming because of its sustainability impact. And they're great organizations that we're behind, like the Greening of Streaming, that are defining standards specifically around encoding and leveraging AI to make these calls. And this is, I think, very important area of focus.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I bet Dom Robinson just popped up somewhere wondering why we were talking about it.
He promised me a beer at IBC.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well done.
Okay.
Very good. So let's talk a little bit then about the more modern stuff, right? This new era that we find ourselves in, where AI is everywhere, and it lets us stop talking about the metaverse for like 2 minutes, even though I know it's coming back thanks to Apple and Vision Pro. So I'm readying myself. I'm stealing. But let's talk about like where are some of these new applications that OpenAI and Midjourney and others, where is the role that AMD finds itself playing in this new epoch that we find ourselves in?
Sure. I mean, one of the areas, and Eric, we had talked about this, and I'd love to have you elaborate a bit more on it, but being able to take, content, maybe older content, lower resolution content, and upscale it, but upscale it in a way that it's not artificial. You're unlocking, libraries of content that maybe otherwise wouldn't be enjoyed. I think that is an area. We've implemented adaptive bitrate scalers so that we can concurrently stream, a live stream at all of the required subsequent ABR rendition ladders below and preserve quality as you scale down or scale up. But I mean, Eric, I think you guys have even some more advanced use cases that you're working on that seem pretty exciting.
Yeah, happy to go through some of those. And the part that's really new is the part that the AI backend, it understands what the content source is, and then does the job accordingly.
Right, the
And
context.
it really understands the context, and that's what is so interesting about it. And it's because of all the work that's happened that's sort of revolutionized, what we see going on nowadays. And I'll walk through a couple examples of it. It's interesting in that I'll first start really just with pure video. Okay, just like no real treatment of it or anything like that. But what's interesting is that when you then use it towards, an artistic representation, so you take something like a show like Weeds, which is the example ones we used, which there's a lot of creative license to how they, not just how they shot it, but how they post what they didn't post and everything like that. And so then what's interesting is seeing the AI then being able to, in having watched a lot of those episodes, it now knows that, oh, this is the intention, behind it. And it will go through and yes, it will make it crisper and make it more real for the viewer, but it also preserved that artistic intent there. And it's really pretty fascinating to see the results from it. So just a couple of things to walk through. What we're, typically you'll see the upper two really are the standard sort of ways that upconversion happens, which is really just a scaling of what it is. And the lower two are the ones that we worked on, and the bottom one is the one that we've standardized on for a lot of our customers. And it's a way to really dramatically sort of increase the resolution and the overall video fidelity of the image. And this works both from like SD to HD as well as HD to from 1K to 4K as well. And so there you can see just this was a example of a race where they didn't want to have 1K cameras out there. They had traditional 480p cameras, and they were able to go through and it would just watch it live and looked as if it was a 1K workflow for that. Moving on, now let's look at like something more detailed, a typical 1K image here, and then looking at the moving it up to 4K. You can see that, some detail areas, huge amount of difference there between it because the algorithm, the AI recognized the type of content that was there and knew to optimize for types of lettering. It had seen images before, and so it knew to what those images were as references to be able to do those types of things. And I'll even just show just like a little can show two just little videos just to really see it live to give you an idea of it. Let's see, did that? Okay, good, it did. With this one first. Yes, restart. So there being the left being the 1K input through the 1K workflow, and then the right being the 4K upconverted. And so, as we all know, 4K workflows are super expensive to go through. And it's really, for overwhelming amount of, applications, it's just cost prohibitive. So how can you have a way, whether you're taking, let's say, archival format from SD to HD, or you're trying to keep costs contained, go for a 1K workflow, but then move it into 4K.
It is really democratizing storytelling,
Yeah.
right? It's giving broader access, which is, I think, a great application of AI.
And the interesting thing is that if you compare the 4K, so the 1K image is actually down converted from 4K. So if you compare the original 4K file size, where the upconverted 4K one is much more efficient as well. So actually, you're getting like nearly the same quality level, but at the same time, your bandwidths are much lower
Right.
as well, because you really are truly getting the fully optimized bandwidths.
And how much is someone, that's using MediaKind services, how much are they having to interact with this? How much of it's just adapting automatically? Like, is there a lot of knowledge or upskilling that someone's needing to do in order to take advantage of this, or is it pretty much out of the box?
It's pretty much just a SaaS. Like you upload files. It will, we go through and we give a couple, here's a 1 minute segment, randomly distributed throughout it. You QC it and go through and do the whole rest of the thing.
So pretty minimal, like training loop effectively, and then it's just up and running.
Yep, exactly.
Excellent. Very cool. Leonard, back in your world, where in that, I know from the work that we do together that a lot of in this sort of new world of the sort of generative AI, you've been doing a lot of thought around things like dubbing and subbing and other areas. What are the modern takes there or what's the takeaway you've had from the last sort of 6 months to a year of effort around that?
And there's
No pressure.
I know to give a
If you get
little
it
bit
wrong,
of
you're only sitting in Hollywood. It's no big deal.
Okay. I just want to give a background, right? It's generative. AI has been here for a while. It's not just brand new. Generative is what we are getting to. Before, retraining the model was super costly. So then transformational model came, and then retraining got cheaper. So the model ecosystem cost-wise got slow. So the transformation model already existed, then we added generative to it. So from what we were looking at, dubbing, subbing, and having auto-generated subtitles existed, but the context was always missed. So as I may have talked to a few folks here, somebody opening a car door and asking to get in, and the actor just says "get in" means different in different location. How you look at the screen,
Right.
and then
Different languages
in-
will translate that differently.
different language. And there was a bunch of kids playing around. Let's say if a nickname for a kid is like a rat or a mouse or whatever they want to call it. It sounds when it translated, it's like completely different context. So there's a lot. The context is the key. Without the context, when you translate it, a lot of things can go wrong. And with the last 6 months, that's one of the key areas we're trying to focus on, as you mentioned, is to get the context from the video. So these transformation models can understand what it's translating. So we get to the right information, and then neural voices again later.
So it's really about making the translated content feel more natural regardless of what language it's in.
Yeah, it's based on what target, looking at the cultural. That's a lot of localization is more cultural based. It's like you got to get the right words in, so
Yeah.
get the right information.
Yeah, I
And
know.
also within a language, there's different ways of speaking as
Yes.
well. You know, it's how casual is the tone. You know, is there maybe a certain accent? You know, regional accent or other things like that.
Yeah.
That's to me one of the amazing things to see that come through in the translation.
Yeah, it's tiny steps, right? We get better every day. The tiny steps and change is inevitable. So, yep.
Aaron, you look like you had a comment there that you wanted to jump in on.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking of, certain words in certain languages are much longer, and from what maybe an actor is speaking in the original content. So being able to maybe find appropriate words that would still convey the same intent, but provide maybe less of a dubbed view, I think is an interesting use. Of course, you've got to look at the integrity of what was originally written.
Right.
But that's an interesting concept too, and an interesting application here for sure.
When you actually mentioned the right thing, right? The adaptive text. Some a scene may be 5 minutes long, but you translate it to Spanish, it may come out to 7 minutes. So now there won't be anybody on the scene, but the thing will still on, right? So we need to take that with the context into a proper language model to come out with the right, maybe an abstract base, maybe information. Don't lose the information grammatically, change things, or okay, Spanish is spoken a little faster than Brazilian Spanish or kind of thing, so we can increase the speed from 5 milliseconds and down. And kind of lots of things we can try now. Before, without these models, it was difficult. Now we have lots of options, and we can try it out, which fits best. It's not like one option fits for everything, so we need to have multiple options to test it out.
Yeah, and it's a good point, and I know there's been a lot of work around like how do we do like lip syncing and matching to those new languages because that becomes possible as well. How do we slow down or retime the scene to match the new pieces of language? And again, it kind of comes back to that reinforcement of it is not the one big AI, it's lots of little pieces. It's a pipeline of AI utilities that are sort of working doing their part and then passing it on to the next to enable something. And then some of them are just automated and we're just taking advantage of it. And then in others we're applying some human interaction and interface to change the way that it's working. Where Erik, where are the next pieces? Like where's MediaKind going with this? What are some of the like cool shit items that are out there? Open up here the magic box and tell us like where you guys are thinking about taking advantage of some of this.
Yeah, there's lots of different areas to explore, and so we'll talk about some that are actually much more near time than probably most people realize. And maybe they seem simple, but in the end, they actually are super valuable as well. So with a lot of our customers who are focused on streaming, like joint customer the NBA, you know, which has been super excited about the quality of the video, but they also want to have much deeper interactions with their consumers as viewers in other countries are there expect it in different languages. But they also want to, if like let's say since you mentioned Brazil, you know, there's several Brazilian players in the NBA. You know, how can you make sure when you watch a broadcast of an NBA game and you're in Brazil, it knows that, and then it makes sure that the edit actually focuses a bit more on those Brazilian players. Make sure that maybe their stats are shown, you know, a little bit more. You know, that's how do you identify it from the back end point of view, who that audience member is, who that fan is, what they want, and
So
then
so
tune it.
moving out of the production into the engagement side of it and the experience side.
Mass personalization. I mean, I think where we're seeing things head is traditionally, it was a one to many broadcast model, and we're now moving to where even consumers or influencers can become producers of content and tap into multiple feeds and create engaging content. And then also, in terms of, targeting to their wants and needs, having that added context, I think will create tremendous opportunities to deepen fan engagement in the context of live sports. But yeah, these are very exciting areas where you guys are working at the application level for sure.
Are there elements in the advertising piece of that as well, that where AI is also then playing a role for it? Or I know I would imagine MediaKind's not doing all those pieces, but I would imagine there's got to be stuff, just like you're inheriting sort of capabilities as far back as the post work that goes on. You're probably able to pass on details to the advertising side of it that help improve things and target and customize it even more.
Yeah, ad buyers, they want to be advertising to the people that, meet that campaign's need. And they may have a variety of different needs for different campaigns, but the only way they can do match that is that if they have information about the context of both the individual and the context of the situation in which they're watching it. So some of the ways we're doing is kind of along the lines exactly what you said, like how when you have live video to be able to identify what's going on, what's the emotional level of the video at that moment in time. Are there any brands that have shown up recently, or maybe categories like, someone, basketball players just opened up a drink and just took a big swig. Well, there's an indication that probably a lot of viewers, if they had an ad for a drink or something like that, it may resonate a bit more. And the buyers are looking for that now because it's so. I mean, there's been so many changes over the past 5 years, and that were accelerated by the pandemic, and now you're really seeing them come. And a big part of it is the ad market. And if you look at the number of households who have cable TV in the U.S., we're sub 42% now. And so, how do advertisers reach those people? If they can't directly go through the traditional methods. And so they're all looking, and now we're seeing those dollars shift. And if they shift into the digital realm, that means they need to have access to the relevancy
Right.
of that impression opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that word, because I feel like it's not like nobody gets excited about it being advertised to, but at the same time, if it's a very relevant ad, you care a lot less about that. Like, and you actually might work about it. And like, frankly, I think of Instagram as like the most relevant advertising I get these days. I was like, if I could get the Instagram APIs involved in my commercial viewing, I'd probably be more excited and interested in it, for sure. Leonard, like, where are the next phases for this that you think we're going with this? Just from your own opinions, like I know that the synthetic voice work has been an area you've been playing around a lot with. Is that sort of the next cutting edge, or is there even more things out there that you think we need to start exploring and thinking about?
Before going there, because we talked about personalization,
Go for it.
I wanted an off-topic request. That's a feature request. We want to add that personalization and tagging to grocery shopping, because every time I go pick an apple, I pick one wrong apple for some reason. So if there is a stats that comes up, good one, bad one,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
easy
I
for
would
us to
love
get.
it on a panel where we start building a backlog of feature requests. So this is perfect.
We can file a Jira ticket right now. Let's file a Jira ticket.
All right. For the synthetic voice, that's a lot of need that has come up in the past, both true synthetic voices and composite synthetic voices. And
You want to explain a little bit about that, what
Oh.
that is, just to make sure everybody's on the same page?
Synthetic voices are generated voices, human voices, but coupled with another artificial eco. Composite voices take like 10-year-old and a 50-year voice and then make a 30-year voice, kind of composite voices. And we can do common natural synthetic voices, like somebody talking, make it more like computer generated voices for a darker tone, and then different modulation. Listen to someone and say, oh, his happiness may be a little bit higher pitched than how is generally. So kind of those kinds of things was also more synthetic enabled. So those are the synthetic voices. Lots of people are looking for it for animation, and kind of people always look at pictures with longer nose, with a shrill voice and bigger ears, or the bass voice, kind of annotate that with how the things look like. So those are more synthetic element, and adding that with adaptive translated text gets a little bit further to make it look better. Kind of somebody talking in Spanish may be different than talking in Polish, maybe.
Right.
So how do we change those elements and tones and more modulations and
the
how their voices,
intonations,
the
right?
intonations
Yeah.
and all those stuff? How do we make that happen? So that's the key ecosystem that's coming out. As I said, there are a lot of options we can do now. So it's up to the creative to pick and choose and say, okay, this is better than this. Give the choices available so they can explore what a bit more than they have done in the past. So those are the keys for these synthetic voices coming out. Again, there's a lot more, but these are the major three that we are trying to cover it out.
Very interesting stuff. Very cool. And I mean, Aaron, I think I skipped past you on this one, but where's the next phase for you guys? Where's the new ground that you see breaking over the next sort of year or two for AMD applying AI into the workspace, the media space in particular?
Well, again, a lot of the work that we do is through our partners. We provide silicon platforms, and a lot of our software vendors are just developing amazing innovations with our silicon. We're seeing interesting use cases in the area of automating QC workflows for mastering content, and leveraging AI to identify bad shots and flagging that is one area of innovation right now. A lot of partners that we're working with are focused in that area, which again, coming over from the video distribution side, now working more on the content creation side. These are, new processes that I'm sure many of you, all of you here, are very familiar with. It's relatively new to me, but to see rapid innovation in that space is very interesting.
And I think that ultimately is a lot of what I keep seeing it is that AI is just accelerating. It's that fuel that's increasing the speed of what we're doing. Even a couple of years ago, the sort of the pre-generative or the generalized platform areas, when we were having to do more directed trained models, we were using AI, but it was taking longer to do everything because you invariably had 6 extra months of engineering effort and work where data scientists were having to spend more time sort of tuning and getting exactly to do what you wanted. And now all of that's become sort of a few hours or maybe a day or two of work that you can then quickly iterate on and change more rapidly. So it's that flexibility.
I guess one of the exciting things that I'm seeing at AMD are imperatives that all of our products will integrate AI in some form or another, from the very advanced computing platforms that are used to train these large language models and do it in the most efficient way. I don't know how many of you have played around with Llama 2 and other recently released models, but I think it's interesting that, to be fully transparent, they're actually representing the carbon footprint impact that it took to actually train that model. And so having silicon that is, very power efficient, I think is interesting. Seeing integration again of AI, maybe what we'll call old school AI, in things like video transcoders to inference processing units that we're putting into our CPUs that go into consumer notebooks, et cetera. Working closely, of course, with Microsoft to do things like background blur and some very interesting things that again help improve battery life, just help improve general enjoyability of the products that we all use to do work and to play. Is really encouraging, exciting to see these great new use cases. One that fascinates me right now is also being able to take different approaches with these models to sparsify them so that they can actually run efficiently even on a CPU, right? I know that GPUs, and again, we work very closely with the community of silicon companies in this area, but having more options, I think, is exciting.
Yeah, I think that it takes a lot of that working in conjunction pieces, because it's not going to be that all of this lives in the cloud, all of it lives on edge, all of it lives in a CPU or a GPU. It's going to bounce around, and we need to have the flexibility of being able to run it in different places and have different impacts on it. Eric, it looked like you had a comment there too.
Well, I guess I wanted to maybe actually almost return to the theme here that
Yeah,
we're
go
talking
for it.
about here. And that is that, the uses of AI are so broad and there's really about things about doing new things, things we couldn't do before, or getting a much better result from an efficiency, whether, for, from a carbon impact and a cost point of view, other things like that. I think, over the past 6 months, there's been so much noise about the potential for it to remove humans, but there's so many more things well beyond that. And there's always going to be the human need to be the creative, instigator of it, for the one to mold it and direct it and everything like that. Um, but there's also just things that a human could never do, and they may be seemingly boring, but like a really important use case is, like, there's a lot of people who record TV shows still, and they record them into cloud DVRs, and an AI can go there and know what the show is, know that what audiences are watching it around the world, anticipate that people are going to record it, where they're going to record it, how long they're going to keep it, and then you end up reducing your cost for your storage. You're much more, energy efficient at being able to deliver that content because you staged it in the right place, close to the audiences that are most likely to do it. There's no way a human, could be involved in doing that. And in the end, it's a better result for all the humans.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a good point across it, is that it keeps coming back to that. It's the multiple pieces working together, and a thing that I heard Satya say in a couple different conversations was he sees this turning the creative community into conductors, that they're ultimately using the AI to orchestrate a variety of tasks that free them up to focus on the storytelling, whatever their version of storytelling may be.
Giving creatives more time with their art.
Right, absolutely. Very good. Well, I think I wanted to sort of turn it over to the crowd and see if there were some questions. I believe we have about 10 or 15 minutes left. Are there questions for the panel here that we have? Anything that pops to mind? If we figured out that how AI is going to remove humans from the equation, which is not what I thought it was?
Hello, gentlemen. Excellent panel. Thank you so much for sharing that insight. So my question was more in terms of giving you an example that today, if you take a 300 character or a 2000 character text and put it through the generative AI or ChatGPT, it's going to give you a nice summary the way you want. Do you foresee a similar scenario or a similar use case also being possible for a short form content, say 90-second content or a 2-minute content that passes through your AI based video vision computing processing and then gives us some insight? As app builders, we want to be able to, for example, build a use case where if you had a really great rebound in a game or a really, really nice touchdown, and if a user enjoyed it, we want to be able to, say, go through a library of content and quickly show those relevant other content to it. I know that these things are possible within 4 walls of Google and YouTube, but maybe is it possible that it could be open and democratized?
Erik?
I've interacted with some teams, small teams, in fact, that are doing just that, especially in the esports space where they'll watch gameplay and then those influencers will leverage these tools to create highlights, right? And they'll automatically create those highlights. As you were asking that question, it brought up an interesting scenario for me. We have a summer intern and we had tasked him with developing a short video. It ended up being a lot longer. And my feedback to the intern was, let's cut that down, right? People have bite-sized attention spans. Give me a 90-second and a 60-second variant, shoot. Having tools like that to help do that, I think would be phenomenal. That's a great question. I don't know if others have comments on that question.
Erik?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll certainly add it from a sports highlight point of view. That's actually it's been out there in the market. WSC Sports is a great partner of ours that specializes in doing that, where you basically say, yeah, here's a game. I want a 2-minute recap. I want a 1-minute, highlight reel. I want to watch the whole game in 10 minutes. And there it goes. It's able to do it.
Where it's starting to go, though, and I think I've seen interesting experiments around not just taking sort of the WSC example, which is sort of the 1 2-minute version of the highlight game, but give me the Andy version of it, which basically take the player stats of like, when did I play and pause things? When did I fast forward? When did I rewind? You already, you probably also know a lot of information about who my favorite team is or who my favorite players are. Spoiler alert, I don't actually like sports. Don't tell anybody. But
It would just be a blank screen.
for me, it would pretty much like the 2-minute version of of an NBA game for me. And don't tell
Super
Ken.
Bowl commercials.
Yeah, well, it's Game of Thrones or something else, basically. But no, so being able to take that information and then apply it to the game and the metadata. So really, we're kind of talking about taking pools of metadata and organizing them to present a new version of the content that's specific to me or specific to Aaron or Leonard or Erik. As a piece of that.
direct, I see it going, and it's. I mean, I won't name specific entities, but they are already looking at. They had, let's say, 5 cameras that would shoot a game, and now they want to triple that, quadruple that number of cameras. But having like production teams be able to handle that many and all the possible variants, is really unwieldy. They're going to create a couple of produced live productions
Right.
that meet some key things. But what about if the back end knows, the AI knows that you are a fantasy player and you have your fantasy team has created this and that? And what happens if they know that you live in Pittsburgh, and you really hate Cleveland, or, like all the different variants of that? Like, how then does it do its live edit based upon those 15, 20 cameras to be able to make it look like it's a neutral game, or it's an away game, or it's a home game, or it's a highlight, make sure that you always see, whichever players it is that you're in your fantasy league more often. Make sure you anticipate it, keeps you in the game by predicting essentially the next time they're going to actually take a 3-pointer, those types of things. We're right on the cusp of that. It really is. It's really more about, from a scale standpoint, can you do that for every single one of your audience members, or do you need to focus with a premium set to be able to do it?
Well, what's unprecedented too is you look at like the NBA and the amount of sensor data they're collecting from these games. I mean, these become huge training sets that will really only enhance those experiences, those personalization experiences going forward. Yep.
Leonard, did you have thoughts here? Are we going to have
I do agree with
generated?
what Erik was saying, but again, I'm a platform guy. I'm going to give you multiple options based on a platform. But again, it won't help but confuse a lot of people. But the key, what you asked the question, I think fundamentally we need 3 pieces. One is the viewer, about the viewer, what you are interested in, which player you're interested in, kind of material, or not you, by you, but the viewer, right? The next piece is what's happening in the game. Who's shooting? Is there an event happening? Is the ball carried forward? Just to generate pass? Kind of that event ecosystem, and then the context. What's happening in the context? It could be a local sports. It could be so we have to match these 3. I think there are platforms which can all 3, but connecting them and getting it to the user, that's the pipeline we talked about, is not, maybe it's there, but it's not available for open, free, you're talking about. But I think the platforms exist. You can collect some information, you collect all information about a human, about what their preference or what they're watching. And lots of the gaming and stats coming together on personalization. Now they're doing something called a group profiling, where it's not just one person, it's like a group of people at that age group and things like that. So you get multiple edits of a game available for them right away to watch it. Right. So those are the categories now. But again, as Erik was saying, we are on the cusp.
Real time.
Well, moving away from the
Live.
sports, I'll give any of the entrepreneurs in the audience a free thing that I want, just because I want it. Every time I turn on a new OTT service, I want a 90-second trailer of all the new content that's been put on there since I was last logged in. I would love that. And I want it to be the stuff I want to watch, not the stuff my daughter wants to watch. She's great. I love her, but there's only so much anime I can take. And I'm not watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine again. I'm sorry. We've seen it 7 times as a family. I love it, but I dream episodes of it at this point. Do we have any other questions from the audience? I don't want to take up all of the time here. Any other questions out there? All right, then we get to do some closing thoughts here on where we're all taking this. Erik, I'm gonna pick on you first. Where are the pieces of the AI, and what are the things these people need to go away and sort of think about as it applies to the work that they're doing?
Number one is that AI, we've been using it for a long time, and it's already produced some great results for all of us that we enjoy, whether it's from a entertainment quality, from its opening up new models, business models, new delivery models, or just making the economics work. But we're really just starting, and there's a lot more interesting things that are on the horizon here that we're already starting playing with, trying to do, and I think it's an exciting period for us to discover what things can be done that we couldn't have imagined in the past, and do it in a responsible way, doing it in a way that fits a need and fits the value. Because bottom line, if it doesn't do that, then we've been wasting our time.
Absolutely. Aaron, what about you?
I think we all need to a certain extent, set aside a lot of the hype and excitement around generative AI. I think it's going to be very important and transformative. I think to your point, Erik, we've been focused in these algorithms, these AI algorithms, for a very long time as an industry. And I think this is just an exciting time, right? I'm a silicon guy, from where we are in terms of the advancements that we're making in compute architectures. We're going to see great new capabilities, I think, that are going to give us all tremendous superpowers. So excited to see what we're all going to create.
Leonard, what's everybody's homework?
Um, for the AI piece, I think it's just going to augment human. That's what it is. So it's not replace it or whatever. It's just going to make things do better and
Yep.
more effective, more efficient. And we have to be responsible, like driving a car, knowing how to light up a matchstick with fire. We have to be responsible how we use it, where we use it, how fast we are using it, and definitely I would recommend everybody to use AI and start with your digital cleanliness, meaning I have chunks and chunks of email sitting. Let's start deleting it and save some carbon footprint back into this world. And that's what you can use it for. You can just go run an AI engine against your email and say, remove all coupons I saved forever till last month. They
All
quit
expired?
everything. Yeah, all expired. They're clean. Let's.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to do some digital cleanings to reduce the carbon footprint. So let's do it.
Be
Yeah.
a digital hoarder.
I think for me the thing I'd ask everybody to take away is like do your own homework, form your own opinions, do some research, play with it, get your hands dirty and try it out, because then you see the limitations. Like, as much as we talk about how exciting it is, there's also like there's a lot of people, when I sit down and talk to them, I'm like, oh, you think this is science fiction still? That you're like you're informed by the AI you saw in a movie, not not the AI that is actually working. So learn the pieces of it and get your own feelings and form your own opinions about it. Don't just take our word for it. Like, we play with this stuff all day, and we're super excited about it, but you will become excited about it and you will see the way you want to use it. And that's the most important part for you. And if I could leave you with that, please take it away. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone. Next up, we have